Hey, we're cooking with gas here on the Jewcast.
Okay, careful using a phrase like that.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of two mockeries, of a sham.
Tradition!
Oh, shut up, Carl! Shut your goddamn Jew mouth! You people are why there's war in the Middle East!
Gekaken auf ein Jahr.
Neppich.
Verpupupu.
Vermischt.
Verkackt.
Vertutzt.
Verstunken.
Farted.
Exactly.
You're what Grammy Hall would call a real Jew.
Do it, put the Jew into it. Episode 65 coming at you.
Do it, put the Jew into it. Wow.
I don't know, I feel pretty fired up about it. I'm excited. Can you blame me? We're still doing it.
Is that what you say before you have sex with a non-Jewish woman?
Yeah, I say it to myself. At least the first time.
Okay.
At least the first time, you know. You don't want them to leave right away.
Feels like the very first time.
Oh boy. Well,
we're still in quarantine.
We're still doing it, and there are still people apparently getting called out for doing jokes about anti-Semitism. You can't even do jokes these days.
Well, I mean, I guess there's some discrepancy about these jokes. I guess let's, back it up a little bit. There is a German stand-up comedian who was performing in Brazil.
Yes.
And her name is Leah Maria John? I don't know how they say it.
Maria Leah.
H-N. Anyway, she has some jokes about the Holocaust. She does a Hail Hitler. Jewish groups are very upset about this. Now, I just, read about her jokes. It was something, on Christmas, we asked for a friend as a gift. Once I got it, but it only lasted a day. He escaped. He was Jewish. I said he escaped, not that he died. He was very fast. If I do this joke in Germany, I'll be arrested. Letting a Jew escape like this. So I guess this is getting some heat. I guess this video went viral. It got like over 1 million hits. Now, I didn't watch the actual video, but Jordon, you did, and you're saying that this is another case of just us, being like,
I think so. I mean, listen, you and I know better than most because we're comedians, so we come at it.
Anti-Semitism, that's what I'm trying to say.
We come. I watched this as a comic more than I watched it as a Jew because the whole line between what's appropriate and what's offensive is different for everybody, I think. And some people make jokes when they maybe shouldn't sometimes, but I feel like the intention behind it is still just the joke. She's a German comedian. She's living in Brazil, so she's doing this set in Portuguese. Number one, which is not not her native language. The video is in Portuguese. It has subtitles, and it's clear to me by watching it that she's still a young comic. She's still probably in the first 5-6 years of her career. She's still trying to figure out where those lines are. This was her closer, essentially. She did a lot of jokes about being a fish out of water, about being a German in Brazil, and she made a lot of jokes about those kinds of things, and how her accent is terrible, and the cultural differences. And she closes with a thing about with this Jewish joke. The article actually cut out the beginning of the joke, which is that she has a hard time making friends. I have a hard time making friends. I asked I wished for Christmas to have a friend for Christmas, but it didn't last long. He ran away. So that was the intro to the joke. They took it a little bit out of context in the reporting, I think, to be honest.
So you think that she's kind of making fun of the Nazis and the Holocaust, not like kind of making light about it.
Correct. She's making fun of the fact that as a German and as a comedian, she's expected to talk about it. It was almost like, whether or not you find the joke funny is a separate issue. I think that might be the biggest problem with it, is that when you, especially taken out of context, and just trying to point it out, there's so many nuances to telling a joke. So I think it was taken out of context in a way that really strips it of the actual joke. Of the humor that she was trying to go for. So whether or not you find it funny is a separate issue. But I really think that it was basically her saying, because I'm German, people expect me to do a joke about hating the Jews. So here is one, essentially.
Okay.
It was kind of a
All
tongue in
right.
cheeky. It was tongue in cheek the way she did it. You know, it was. She wants to make friends. She finally gets one, but he runs away, and the twist is it's because he's a Jew. You know, that's basically what the joke was.
Okay, you know, but meanwhile, it's gotten over 1 million views. This is such a weird thing because probably got those views because people are complaining that it's anti-Semitic. So it almost like does better because it has this like kind of twist that it's anti-Semitic than if it would have just went out and nobody would have said anything about it. It probably wouldn't have gotten as many views. It's not getting 1 million views because like every, you know, anti-Semite is like, oh yeah, finally a joke for us,
right?
We could admire. It's getting that. So you know, what's best to do? You know, because we've talked about this a lot. You know, we talked about De Blasio. You know, when Jews kind of like we're very quick to say what's anti-Semitic when people are against us, and hey, of course we should be a little nervous and we should be concerned about it with you know the history of the hatred towards Jews and anti-Semitism being at an all-time high. But, you know, at what point is it just, you know, like the boy crying anti-Semitism?
I think also, you know, there are German comedians. You know, I've met plenty of German comedians, and you know, the from what I understand, the tone and the attitude towards doing that type of material in Germany is very frowned upon.
My experience with Germans is they don't want to, like, don't talk about it.
Right.
Like, that was a horrible thing. Like, we hated that. Like, forget about it. Like, don't mention it. Like,
but
that's kind of like their.
But I've met German comedians who joke about it. You know, who you know, there's a tongue-in-cheek way of doing it. And I feel like, you know, they're trying to make fun of it in the same way that we do as American Jews. You know, I have jokes about the Holocaust. I have jokes about Hitler. I have material about, you know, I have an Anne Frankhouse joke. You know, I have these things that you can joke about anything. But if it's really going to be tough material, if it's going to be a hard topic, it better be the fucking funniest joke about that. You know, you have to make that. You have to make that joke really, really funny to get away with talking about that type of stuff. Which is why I happen to think that this is why it was her closer. You know, she didn't open with it because where do you go from there?
So do you think it's funny enough? Do you think it's funny enough for her to tell this joke?
I think it may be. It's touchy because as I said, I think she's, from watching her whole set, I still think she's pretty young in her career. You know, she's still trying to figure out who she is on stage. So I didn't think it was offensive, to be honest. Watching it, I wasn't offended by it. I thought it was pretty.
Okay.
You know, I thought it was pretty tame. Just like you know, as a comedian, you watch somebody's set with a different eye than the average viewer, but. I found her set to be somewhat pedestrian. There were some high, you know, some highs and some lows. She was getting laughs, you know. She was doing well. I don't speak Portuguese, and the subtitles are a little, you know, it's you're getting a Portuguese, you're getting English subtitles on a Portuguese videos, but she's actually German, so you're like third level.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like the translation isn't perfect. I don't think.
Okay, so you know, we're giving her credit. We're not saying she's like anti-Semite of the week or anything.
Yeah, I withhold judgment on her for this. I think, you know, like you said before, and that we talk about all the time, it's very difficult, you know, to be the Jew always crying anti-Semitism, jumping on it all right away, because I don't think that this stems from any deep-seated beliefs she holds against Jewish people.
Well, that's good at least.
Yeah. Because, you know...
Good to know she doesn't hate Jews.
I mean, we talk about...
there's enough people that do hate Jews.
Yep, we've been talking about this anti-Semitism pretty much every episode.
Which is, you know, I mean, I hope we're not getting repetitive, but it's just crazy how it's like such a thing. It's such a part of our lives now, and it's not you know, you would think after all this time and World War II, the Holocaust, and, you know, even the shooting in Pittsburgh, and, you know, it would be dwindling, but anti-Semitism is rising. It's getting higher everywhere in the world.
I haven't finished watching it yet. I started to watch this documentary that was on PBS. It's called Viral: Anti-Semitism in 4 Mutations. They basically say that anti-Semitism is a virus spread through, you know, cultures, and of its thousands of mutations, these are but 4. So it has 4 different stories in there. They talk to people in Pittsburgh after the shooting in the synagogue, and they talk to an openly anti-Semitic and racist politician.
Which is crazy that this guy even exists. And what, he got, like, when he ran, he got like 34% of votes or something?
He got 37% of the vote. So it was Russell Walker in North Carolina who got 37% of his district's vote when he ran for the State House of Representatives in 2018. And they interviewed this guy, and he's talking about how whites are superior and that the Jews are part of a whole conspiracy to make the country less white. That the whites are losing all of their privilege, essentially, and that's what he won on.
All right. Yeah, I don't know. We talked about this before. People just want the Jews are a scapegoat for everything. That's what even, other anti-Semites, when they're trying to recruit other people to dislike Jews, they look for people that have a gripe with something so they could blame that on the Jews. Right.
There's even a guy in this documentary that they interview who was a former white supremacist, and he talks about how he recruited people for those groups. And he looked for white people, white kids usually, who had something wrong in their life, and he would try to find ways that he could help them blame it on the Jews. And that would bring them into the fold. It's interesting.
Right, Jews are like a universal scapegoat.
Yes. And, one of the things that this documentary was talking about is how the anti-Semitism was very prevalent before World War II, and after the Holocaust, it kind of muted a lot of the voices that were saying that the Jews were responsible for everything because we were so persecuted in the Holocaust. So it put a little pause on that, and as time has gone on, those voices are starting to get louder again.
Crazy, and unfortunately, there's not as many survivors as there were, and there are so many people that, of course, are saying that the Holocaust wasn't real. It's just a ploy for us to, have God in Israel and to have the sympathies of the world. And, we're soon going to be at a place where we're not going to have these first, hand stories of survivors that were there that are telling their experience. Like, we're not going to have that anymore. And I think that's just going to make more anti-Semitism.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest issues for sure. The fact that the firsthand knowledge of what happened is not going to be accessible. It will cause more people to disbelieve that those things happened.
It's crazy.
It is.
So this documentary is on PBS.
It is on PBS, and you can get it on their website as well. You can watch it for free on their website, and we'll talk more about it next week after we've both seen it.
Check it out. It's crazy that we have to brush up on our anti-Semitism.
Yeah, we do need to brush up on it.
And, it's not even, new or original anti-Semitism. It's still the same, anti-Semitic tropes that they've been having forever. It's the same, dumb bullshit. At least come up with something new. Come up with a new reason to hate us, not the same lame reasons that, aren't true.
Exactly. I mean, if you're gonna hate us, at least put some jokes in there.
And make sure they're very funny. Because that's what we learned. We could kind of forgive anti-Semitism a little bit if it's super funny. If it's not super funny, don't even bother.
You got to bring the funny. Funny is funny, You can debate whether or not it's offensive later.
So, yeah, it's crazy. People are still blaming the Jews for coronavirus. We did this to throw off the world's economies. It's just insane. If you're a Jew, do something nice for other people. If you're not a Jew, say something nice about Jews.
And, we always try to have try to widen our perspective. We are going to have another guest on today.
Oh, my God, so many guests.
Yeah, we are going to be talking to comedian Yoni Downs, who was born and raised in Israel before bouncing around a little bit. He actually spent time in Germany and has settled in Brooklyn, where all the other Jews are.
Very nice.
Get him on the phone here.
Solid. Well, hello.
Yes, hello to Yoni Downs. Welcome to the American Jew Podcast.
Welcome.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, half at least. I was not really born here, but I'm close enough.
Yeah, you were born in Israel, right?
That's right.
So,
well, you don't have to be an American to be on the show. It's not a prerequisite.
I was getting worried. I was like, I don't.
Show us your birth certificate, goddammit!
Jesus, man, I don't have. Where is it? It's over somewhere. I don't know where it is. Behind the broom, under the broom somewhere. Yeah.
So how Jewish were you raised?
Well, it was more like my because a lot of things happen specifically that are very common to Israelis when they move to the States or move out of Israel. My mom was that person. So in general, she just kind of didn't have very much need or didn't feel that much need to be Jewish while in Israel. But then we moved to the States and kind of missed a little bit of that. So we ended up going on the high holidays. It wasn't that much. And main issue was that my mom was kind of dissatisfied with most of the congregations that we joined, so we kept switching different ones. And we ended up in a Chabad house in the middle of Oklahoma when I was a kid, about 9 or 10 years old.
How do you even find a Chabad house in Oklahoma?
Yo, they're everywhere.
It's across from the Waffle House.
Yeah. I don't know if they have the gluten-free waffles or kosher waffles or some shit like that.
And how did you feel? How did you feel about going to Chabad? It's a super religious environment. I'm guessing in Oklahoma you weren't in a lot of Jewish environments.
No, the thing is, there are Jews everywhere. They're everywhere. They were in Oklahoma. I was about to say I was in Peru, traveling around, and I ended up going to a Passover Seder with 11 Israelis organized by a Chabad guy in Arequipa, Peru. I got an email from a Chabad guy in Chicago that I'd met around the holidays saying, "Hey, I know you told me you were traveling. If you need a Seder, it's here." They're on top of it, you know.
The Chabad want you.
Yeah.
They want everybody. They want every Jew.
Yeah, they want to make you better Jews and the whole thing and whatever.
It's a mitzvah for them to get other Jews to do mitzvahs. Mitzvah through association.
It's commission sales, I think. So they got me one of those Seders when I was in Peru. And in Oklahoma, it was very similar, but except I was a kid, so... I was born in Israel. We moved to Baltimore when I was 5. We moved to Tulsa when I was 6. It was kind of a merry-go-round at that point. Different congregations didn't really faze me. I don't know.
But were a lot of your friends Jewish growing up?
A few, but I went to a private school because we moved to the States, and then my dad started working as an administrator in private schools. So I was like a faculty kid among the wealthier group of people in Tulsa, you know.
But you didn't feel different because you were Jewish?
No, there were kids that'd be like, "You're from Israel? What does that mean?" I had that, you know. It was Oklahoma. So it was more about being Israeli than being Jewish that was strange to them. But they knew other Jewish people. But Israel's made me sound like I was from the past or something, from Mesopotamia. So, yeah, it wasn't about Jewish. I never like that, not in that community.
And were you happy to be involved in Judaism, going to different congregations? Was this something I'm meeting new people, this is fun? Or was this oh God, I thought when we left Israel we wouldn't have to do this anymore?
No, I think, because I was so young when we left Israel, I wasn't used to congregations at all. It didn't feel like going to a Jewish synagogue. It felt like going to the place that everybody goes to.
Right.
In Israel. It's we're basically Jews in Israel are like white Americans. We're the source of the country culturally. So it just felt like, no, this is what everybody does. And then going to synagogue in the States, for whatever reason, I think it didn't have that community mentality for me. They had their community, but I didn't really see the point, you know. So it was the beginning of kind of I don't care. Why do I want to do this? I don't care about the community of people I meet. Nothing against them, but I didn't care to meet them. I just was being dragged along to some place where one guy talks and everybody's quiet, and that didn't sound very fun.
Do you feel like you've connected more with Judaism as you became an adult? Did you have a bar mitzvah?
I did. Yeah. I actually had it in Israel.
In Israel.
Yeah, it makes it sound like we were doubling down on the religion thing, but it was more that my dad's not Jewish. He's his background, I think he was raised Episcopal and is born and raised in Baltimore. He's got family in the Midwest and in Seattle and kind of all over the States, but he's Christian raised. So to have the bar mitzvah, it kind of, my folks thought, well, it's for that side of the family anyway. So we did it in Israel. So I had that. Yeah. I learned the singing and the shit and the anymore. And I went through the process, and the lady who taught me was very nice. You know, I enjoyed her company. She was cool, but I didn't.
Did you do it at the Wailing Wall?
No. No, in Tel Aviv there's a synagogue, and they booked a bar mitzvah spot in the synagogue.
When you say Tel Aviv, you're very Israeli.
Yeah, I do say it there's a couple of words that are sacred, where I'll say tahini. I'm not going to say tchina, to all fucking, because nobody's going to know what the fuck I'm talking about. But it's just a different way you say the L, kind of like Tel Aviv. So there's things like that. But my accent when I go there is very American. They know I'm American pretty quickly.
You're a fish out of water everywhere you go, huh, Yoni?
Yeah. Don't make me cry. I'm always alone. And I'm also on the cusp of Gemini and Taurus. Neither of them accept me,
So that's So in between Judaism and Episcopalianism, they don't. No one accepts you either.
And what do you feel a connection to Judaism now as an adult? I know you mentioned that you go to, I guess, different Chabads. Like, what keeps you interested in participating in the different traditions?
Well, usually I just try to manage the guilt from the fact that I don't feel that much interest. I guess it's like I'm a free agent on every level, culturally, ethnically, which is like I just look like a Brian. You know what I mean? Like just a dude from Wisconsin or something. Like religion is about community to me. It always has been. Like people get together, and I went through like 8 different communities in terms of geographically, religiously, in a way with the different groups of that, and so it just started to feel like everybody's kind of changing costumes and making a new play. I was like, I don't care.
Okay. Do you have one memory from like childhood that involved Judaism that really sticks out for you?
Childhood that involves Judaism. My favorite part of going to synagogue was when the prayers were over and the rabbi would start to say something about like life. Like they would take everything that they read with, I guess, a combination of what they were feeling and what they thought that they should say to the community. And I always loved listening to them talk about, just think, their thoughts.
Oh, you like the rabbi speeches?
Yeah, not every one of them, but like the ones that I there were better ones, or ones that I liked more.
Yeah.
And so when it came down to those, I was like, yeah, let's talk about, how we treat each other. And I was never against any of that. It was just, don't tell me to fucking sing right now. I guess I just don't like being told what to do, which I don't. But yeah, the rhythm of it, the quietness, the paying attention, the following the rules was always frustrating to me. But I enjoyed, I think, whatever I learned from that process. I enjoyed what it looked like they were doing the whole thing for, which was to learn about life.
That sounds to me like an origin story on how to become a comedian. I like the sermons, but I don't even like being told what to do. Right.
That's really clear.
Do you talk about Judaism in your act?
The one thing I don't really talk about religion at all in the act, as far as I can remember. I don't think I've ever come up with a joke that involves the Bible or messages or lessons or things like that. I did a joke about something like just the stereotypical Jewish shit. In my first like 6 months of doing comedy, something about how like it's a Jew. If you hear them make that noise,
right.
All they have to do is make the noise, but it was more of just a caricature or anything. If anything, it wasn't really intelligent.
I mean, Jonathan and I talk on the show a lot about how, Jonathan was raised sort of Orthodox and I was raised very Reform. We're both very secular. We come to it from a very secular standpoint. So we try to talk about a lot of this stuff from that standpoint because we don't connect to the organized part of it really. But I do agree that it's all about the community.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And the only thing is also like, I guess this was a factor for me where that my mom's side of the family, being Israeli, they speak very differently than my dad's side of the family. And there was, I'm an only child. We grew up primarily not in cities where the rest of the family was. So there was a lot of kind of isolation involved in that and like not really getting a lot of second opinions on like, hey, your dad's a little bit, he's a little bit like that. Or your mom's a little bit like that. I didn't have much of that. And during that time, just like the idea of being anything, like, okay, we're switching from this synagogue to that synagogue. It felt like comparing 2 minor league baseball teams. I didn't really have any connection. And the Israeli side that I would go visit, it would be it's kind of like as a kid, what I became was a Midwestern kid who went to visit his Israeli family.
Right.
And then I would go visit them, and then they would kind of like slap me into directness, And then I would come back, and then I'd kind of be a little more aggressive than I left. And again, kind of being in between. So like the communities of religion, I always saw them as like, it was like this American Jewish thing. It's not really what I am. I mean, my American dad is not Jewish, so there's no even version of that to hold on to.
Right.
Do you speak Hebrew, Yoni?
I do, yeah. I mean, my accent's gotten worse as I've gotten older, but I've tried to always keep it alive.
When you were growing up in Oklahoma or all these different places that you were, did you ever face any
anti-Semitism? Yeah.
Right. I can't think of a single instance where I felt threatened. not a single one. I heard a story once, like by another guy who something like "Shut up, Jew, go back to Hebrew land." When you have smaller groups, bullying is very different. And private schools are generally smaller groups. The fighting, the actual arguments and physical fighting is very different, especially when you add the Midwest to that and the fact that my class size was 105, 110.
Mm-hmm.
So the big classes are kind of I feel like where a lot of that sort of mob mentality and more fighting happens. And I don't remember a thing, honestly,
Well, that's good.
Just kind of I remember, you're from Israel, and he said it in a way that Israel sounded like, some sort of cartoonish Monopoly play. That's all it was. It was just, you sound like a moron,
And what are your views about Israel? With everything going on in terms of the Palestinian people, do you have strong opinions of it?
Well, I mean, I think on the one hand, it's so difficult to begin because the level of emotion that people who have no geographic or ethnic connection to the place is very high. And it's very strange to interact with people who are emotional about something that, I'm not saying they haven't read about it, but they don't have any personal connection to it. So it's an odd place to begin. It's one of those situations where we can't even agree on the first question of this argument. That's
right.
How it usually feels, so I always feel like I'm in this place where I don't, do I need to, first of all, address the right of the country to exist? That makes sense to me. Secondly, I do have friends, and I've met friends in Chicago and Illinois, in New York, where I've lived in both places, that have family in Egypt and the West Bank and Lebanon, and stories about families who were told they could come back, and then they couldn't come back after Israel was set up, and there are also on the other side of that, just you can't, the examples of the gray area between, for each country, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, between whether you're dealing with a government or whether you're dealing with a militia,
right,
made it very sort of convoluted. But at the same, I remember someone telling me, it's ridiculous to assume that if everybody on the non-Israeli side from all angles were to put down their weapons, that there would not be peace. It would make sense that there would be peace if the other side could put down their weapons. That was the phrase. And that, I completely agree with that. And when it comes down to putting down your weapons, why would you put down your weapons if you feel like you've been wronged? And then, who's been wronged? Are we talking about Palestinians? Are we talking about Egyptians? Are we talking about Hamas? Are we talking about Hezbollah? There's all these different factions, and they're all going on at the exact same time.
Right.
So my opinion is, overall, I mean, it's biased inherently because my family is there. It is where I was born. It also is a really incredible moment in Jewish history, just to be connected to that place. And then, if it was a complete shithole, I would be like, well, it's really amazing to be connected to that, but I don't need to go see it that often. But it's also, I think, a remarkable place. It's really a place where I feel incredible when I go there. I do, of course, but every situation has people that are like, oh, this is great. I wish we were let into that. We were allowed in. So I have moments, to wrap all this up, I have moments where I feel like Israel is, they did, it's not that unusual for Jews to go into a place that they're not welcome and set up shop. They go to the Middle East and what are you guys doing? Drinking coffee and smoking hash? We can figure that out. Let's set up shop and we'll hang out down here. And they're very, very mobile like that. The question is, in every situation, how do you do it? Now, the people who went there, they were, on the one hand, refugees trying to get away from persecution. They were also Europeans, a lot of them, Caucasian Europeans, which they maybe assimilated and took some knowledge from the Germans and from the French and from the British and from whoever. But they knew how to set up a place in a way that was, or maybe they didn't know and they just tried to see if it worked. But I mean, what you have is a country that's surrounded by enemies constantly, and I'm not surprised at all that there's a conservative regime that exists successfully. I mean, Trump is convinced at least 100,000 people to be his, 100 million people to be his followers, and Canada and Mexico aren't after us. You know what I mean?
Right.
The nature to feel security when you're being attacked is so much more exploitable, if that's a word. And So I'm not surprised that there's a snake in charge over there with Bibi. But doesn't mean that I don't find it a tragedy and wish it was different.
Yeah. How often do you go back there?
It's about once every year to year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
It's whenever I can. I mean, I lived in Berlin for a few years, actually, and so at that point I was going like 3 times a year, and because it was like a 4.5-hour flight. But
have you done comedy over there?
I did actually, yeah. Because I started doing comedy at age 30. I'm 35 now, or I was 31, something like that, and I went back and did an open mic because I've been back so many times and never been involved in comedy. And one of my friends is an Israeli comedian here. She told me about an open mic. I went, and then the next visit, those comedians said, "Why don't you do our show?" And so I did the show, and that was fantastic. It was a place that holds probably like 125. It was so strange. Like, I've never done comedy in another country except for like an open mic in Berlin that I did. And when you have an actual audience, you really get tested to see how your, references and the things that you're talking about, your energy, your mannerisms, how people from 7 or 12 different countries react to that.
Yeah.
Cool. And you did it in Hebrew? The stand-up?
No. Yeah. They have English comedy there. Like
they have English comedy.
Yeah, I have another friend who's doing Hebrew comedy, and like I'm gonna try to mess with it coming up soon. But it's hard enough in English, man.
True.
Yeah.
All right. We have a couple questions we like to ask our guests, and we gotta wrap up.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite Jew of all time?
My favorite Jew?
Yeah.
Jesus, fucking Slash from Guns N' Roses.
There you go.
Okay.
It's a good one.
It's not Slash. I have a favorite Jew. Now, this is a real Jew, or can it be like a person playing a Jew on screen? Because I think I want it to be Tom Hardy from fucking Peaky Blinders.
Peaky Blinders.
Yeah, I've just never seen a Jew like that. Just as fucking
okay, you like that character?
The character. That's because it's not even a Jewish guy playing him. But
what's your favorite Jewish food?
Jewish food?
Well, I mean, because it all revolves around the meal. It's all about.
Yeah, but Jewish food depends on where you are. Like, I'm not like a huge supporter of your filter fish.
Right.
I'm so annoying. I know. Like, the thing is, Jewish food I think of as like Eastern European food. And
okay, yeah. So do you have a favorite thing? Matzo ball soup, kugel, cholent, obviously not gefilte fish.
Hummus.
Yeah, that's the thing. When I say hummus, it's like I don't want to say hummus is my favorite Jewish food. That's not right. It's Middle Eastern.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's so like the actual to be purely Jewish. I mean, I don't know. Let's say grandma's chicken soup, the fucking Ukrainian chicken soup. That's
okay. That's a good one. Chicken noodle soup.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Do you have a favorite Jewish holiday?
A favorite Jewish holiday? Yeah, I guess it's when I was a kid, they used to close down the street and nobody would drive on the streets. Yom Kippur was like that. Which is like the saddest holiday. So that works.
Your favorite one's the saddest one. Okay.
Yom Kippur, the saddest, is my favorite. Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
Do you have anything you want to ask, Jordan?
No, I think we're good. This has been a lot of fun. I always think that the reason that Jonathan and I have really started this podcast, I feel like there's so much disinformation and confusion as to what the Jews do, and there's so many permutations of it. The fact that we identify as Jewish without really even identifying with the religious part of it is one of the aspects of it that I think most people don't even consider.
Okay. I thought it was because we were desperate for attention.
Well, there's that too, but that's a separate issue. But it's good to have all these different perspectives on the show, and I'm glad that we get that you came on to share with us.
Yes, thank you, Yoni. Is there anything you'd like to plug?
Well, sure. I guess, yeah. I mean, Dead End Comedy on Instagram is where I post all of my information, which during COVID times includes online Zoom shows, online Zoom stand-up comedy shows. Number one. Number two is it's called the Broken News Network. My good friend Jason Stroud and I are kind of spearheading a parody news show. And then I make my own ginger booze. So come, order some ginger amaro from me. I ride it around on a bicycle in our neighborhood. So
nice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You live in Brooklyn, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I live near Jordon, so we're like in Prospect
Okay.
Edwards Gardens. Yeah, so Crown Heights. But I'll bike anywhere, man. I'll ride like 25 miles. I'll give you a bottle of ginger booze.
Nice. I'm all about it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, guys. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, buddy.
Thanks, Yoni.
Of course. Jonathan, nice kind of meeting you.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. All right, guys. Yeah.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you to Yoni Downs for coming on the show.
Yes, totally. And thank you guys for listening. We hope you're staying healthy. We hope quarantine is going well. We hope you will follow us on all social media at American Jew Podcast. Email us at AmericanJewPodcast@gmail.com. Check me out across all social media at Jonathan Randall.
You can find me on Instagram at BeatnikNudnik. You could also find me on TikTok at BeatnikNudnik if that's your thing. Oh, boy. Thanks for listening.